Right here we have the section 1.3, which deals with distance and midpoint. So here are main ideas: distance between 2 points and the midpoint of a segment. So if you have the coordinates of a segment, you can use that to find the length of the segment. The distance from A to B is the same as B to A. The order in which you use the points doesn't really matter, as long as you know the location of the points. So here you have your equations to find distance. So if your numbers are on the number line, that's the absolute value of A minus B, where the locations are A and B. So if you think about your number line, first point is A, second point is B. So the absolute value just measures the number of steps you're taking. So in this case, the distance from A to B would be 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. So B minus A or A minus B, they both equal 4. Distance is given by this formula, where you have 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2. So this would be on the coordinate plane, meaning you have your y-axis and your x-axis, and your 2 points are somewhere there, and you're measuring the distance between them. So this point lies at x1, comma y1, and this one lies at x2, comma y2. All right, so just a key concept box for your composition book. So example 1 here, I use the number line to find CD. So we'll do it with math, and then I'll just do the counting. So C lies at -5, and D lies at 1. So CD is the absolute value of 1 minus -5, which is the absolute value of 1 plus 5, double negative. Absolute value of 6, which is 6. Now remember, an absolute value always returns a positive number. So the absolute value of 6 is 6. If I solve this the other way, so I said that CD is the absolute value, -5 minus 1, that's the absolute value of -6, which is still positive 6. So the absolute value doesn't matter. And if you count, 1 space, 2 spaces, 3 spaces, 4 spaces, 5 spaces, 6 spaces. So you could also just count the number of spaces. Right, so second example, so this is on the coordinate planes. So my equation is that. So this point is x1 and y1, and this point over here is x2 and y2. So when I plug my numbers in, I get the distance is the square root. So x2 is -3 minus x1, which is 5, plus y2 minus y1. So this is the square root of -8 squared plus -4 squared, which is 64 plus 16, which is the square root of 80, which is about 8.9. So that's the distance. So the midpoint of a segment is just the point that divides the segment into 2 equal parts. So if you had some line AB and X is the midpoint, that means these 2 guys are congruent to each other, or they're equal. So here's your midpoint formula. So on the number line, if your 2 points lie at A and B, you just add them up and then divide by 2. If you have an X and a Y, you add the X's, divide by 2, add the Y's, divide by 2. So another one for your theorem book. So first example here, or example 3. So here is Q, which is at 40. Here is P, which is at -20. So to find the midpoint, you add the values together and divide the answer by 2. So that's 20 divided by 2. So the answer is 10. And if you look, 10 is about halfway between 40 and -20. So example 4, now 2 dimensions. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So x1 is -1, x2 is 6, y1 is 2, y2 is 1. Now in this case your answer is simple 5, which actually kind of works in reverse. It gives you the midpoint and one of the endpoints and wants you to find the other point. So z lies at 2, 8, midpoint is y at -1, comma 6, and then you have some point down here, x, that you don't know. Now the easiest way to solve this is actually to look at the pattern. So if you look from y to z, you're going from, say, on the y values from 6 to 8. So you went up by 2, which means that if you're going backwards to x, you do the opposite. If I went up by 2, I got to go down by 2. So this makes this 4. Same thing for the y's. This went up by 3, negative 1 to 2. So to go backwards, I have to subtract 3, which give me negative 4. All right, example 6, find the measure of BC if B is the midpoint. So the midpoint means that AB and BC are equal. So I can set this equation up. AB is equal to BC. So to solve this, let's bring the 2x over. So that makes this 2x minus 5 equals 11. Bring the 5 over, makes that 16. So x is 8. But be careful, that's not what the question asked. The question wants BC. BC is 11 plus 2x. And x is 8. So 11 plus 16 is 27. And that's your answer. If you really want to check, if I plug my 8 back in here, 4 times 8 minus 5 should be 27 as well, because these two parts have to be equal. And the last one, just a little bit of a definition. Any segment, line, or plane that intersects a segment at its midpoint is called the segment bisector. So a bisector just divides something into two. So it's a segment bisector because it's cutting the segment into two equal parts, bisector.